Hi, my name is C.W. Skip Fentress. I live in Gurnee, Illinois. I'm originally from Norfolk, Virginia. My father, long since deceased, served in World War I. And Lauren is with us today.
I'm Lauren Dalkey. I'm interviewing Skip. What exactly was your father's enrollment in the war?
He served in the AEF, the American Expeditionary Forces. That's what the Army was called at that time. He was in the artillery with the 29th Infantry Division from Virginia. He shipped out to France in 1916, and the war, of course, ended a few years after that. He was a corporal in the Army, or the AEF as it was called at that time. He served in the trenches with the other men. He was in artillery, but he fired the cannons, the big guns at the enemy, the Germans and the Italians. He didn't talk a lot about the war to me. I was too young. He just didn't talk a lot about it, but many veterans don't talk about their experiences in war. He did have at one time, and I don't know where they are now, a lot of pictures of the war in France. The men in the trenches, the men with him, they all had shaved their heads because of lice and gas, which was quite an enemy thing that the Germans used, gas attacks. They did have mules that pulled their guns, the caissons, and the joke was when the mule died, then they had a good meal. The total cost of human lives is quite unimaginable. If I may, I'm going to read it from some notes that I have. More than 65 million men fought. Half were killed or injured. 65 million, half were killed or injured. 21 million wounded, 7.8 million were captured, taken prisoner, some of which were never found. Among the other nations, with the exception of the U.S., there was barely a family that did not lose at least one son or brother. Some had every male member lost during the war. Entire towns on many maps, both in France and the United States, were wiped out because the men were killed. The economies of Europe were ruined. The United States emerged as a world power. At the end of 1918, people hoped they would never have to experience the slaughter and destruction that they had lived through for 4 years. That was why it was called the Great War. The war to end all wars. Well, we come to find out not 35, 40 years later, we're back into it again, basically with the same players.
Thank you, Skip, so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to me and to inform others about World War I.
I'm Mike Jelson. I'm Troop 677 here in Gurnee, Illinois. And this is my friend Doug.
And I'm Doug Vandergat, also from Gurnee, Illinois.
My name is John Schultz. I live in Park City, and I was in service during World War II.
Yeah. All right. What was your position and ranking during the war when you served?
Well, I was drafted, and I went in the pilot training program. And May 23rd, 1945, I achieved the rank of second lieutenant, and I was a bomber pilot. And I was still only 19 years old.
So what branch did you serve in?
That was the Army then. That was before we had an Air Force. So I was in the Army Air Corps.
All right.
Now, how long did you serve in the military?
I was in for 28 and a half months.
28 and a half months. And what was like the span of years from,
Well, from September 10th, 1943 till November 24th, 1945.
so right about the end of the war then?
That was right after the war I got out.
How did you feel about being drafted and having to miss out on college? And
Oh, I was ready to go. Matter of fact, I tried to get in the Navy Air Corps before I turned 8. I was still 17. I had to beg my parents to sign the papers for me to go in.
what plane did you train to fly and pilot?
Well, the first airplane I flew was a Stearman. That was an open cockpit, double wing. And the only thing that held you in it when you're upside down is a seat belt. And the Stearman's very good aerobatic aircraft, and very forgiving. From there, I started flying the AT-6 called the Texan. It had retractable landing gear, closed cockpit and all. And then after I had that, my next plane was flying a B-25 in training.
Oh, what was your parents' stance on you being in the military at that time? Were they kind of anxious or nervous, or?
Well, my mother was a typical mother. She didn't like to have her son in harm's way at all. But in service, you'd never know. My father was a Marine in World War I, and he understood that the service was necessary for the country.
How did the American people accept the soldiers? Because I know in Vietnam it wasn't too warm of a welcoming. I mean, was it with you and your unit? I mean, obviously you didn't go overseas, but I mean, did the people still accept you well while you went out in town just to run errands, or?
There was no problem at all with the people, and with some in uniform. They would invite you in the house. They would invite you to parties, the churches. I felt like I was a traitor when I was home on leave one time. I went in my bedroom and I put on a civilian tie. And I just, you don't do that, you wear your uniform. The serviceman during World War II was welcome all everywhere.
I'm
You answered all my questions.
Yeah, I answered all mine too. Just thank you for serving our country.
Well,
thank you.
and if this helps you with your project, I'm glad to give you help.
Right.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.